you all for coming tonight to listen to my speech. We all know that tomatoes are red, but are they really? According to David G. Myers in Exploring Psychology, the 9th edition, 2014, tomatoes are not actually red. They reject the long wavelengths of red. He states that according to Isaac Newton, color is not in the object, but in the theater of our brains. Our color vision is a perception of our brain. How do we see the world in color? In order to answer this question, we must explore how we interpret color, the components of the eye, and how the eye transmits information to the brain for it to interpret what we see as color. According to Myers, the eye can send 1 million messages at once for the brain to interpret. We interpret an object's color through the electromagnetic energy from light. Light waves do not project a specific color, they project energy onto the retina that is interpreted into what we see as color. The light's wavelengths, or the distance from one peak to the next, is what determines the color or hue. The intensity, or the amount of energy in the light wave, measured by the peak waves, determines the brightness of the color. Humans are only able to see a small part of the spectrum of the magnetic energy. Other species are able to see different portions of the spectrum. This means that the color we perceive are different than what other species can see. So color really is a perception of our brains. Our perception is sent to our brain through our eyes. The eye is a very complex structure with several parts that work together to form the images we see. Let's explore the different components that make up our eyes. To do this, it might be best to look at the path that light and an image takes through the eye. According to Myers, light first passes through the cornea. The cornea is the outer layer of the eye. Its purpose is to protect the eye and also to help focus the image. Next, it passes through the pupil. The pupil is the black spot that we see in the center of our eye. The iris surrounds the pupil. It's the color that we see surrounding the black spot. It's actually a muscle that contracts and dilates the pupil. This helps to control the amount of light that enters to help us see in daylight or in darkness. Behind the pupil, there's the lens. The lens focuses the image onto the retina and can focus near or far objects by accommodation, the process in which the lens changes its shape to focus an object. The retina contains rods, cones, and neurons, which all relay information to the brain. Rods detect black, white, and gray and help us to see what is dark when it's darker. Cones are used in good light and help us to interpret fine details. These details create chemical reactions and cause nerve impulses to be transmitted to the brain through the optic nerve. Cones are what are important in interpreting color. So how do all the pieces fit together to create the color that we perceive? There are two theories of color vision we must explore to understand how we see in color. The Young-Helmholtz trichromatic theory is the theory that the retina contains cones that are sensitive to 3 color receptors: red, green, and blue. In combination, when they are stimulated in varying degrees, it creates the perception of any color. For example, the color yellow is perceived when both the red-sensitive cones and the green-sensitive cones are stimulated together. The second theory is the opponent process theory. It's proposed by Ewald Hering. This theory proposes that we create color by opposing retinal processes, meaning that certain colors travel in the same path from the retina to the brain, and the brain cannot process a mix of those two colors. The colors that share the same pathway are red and green, yellow and blue, and black and white. This means that we cannot see a reddish green, but we can see a reddish blue, better known as magenta. He discovered this when looking at after images. Myers states that we can see this at work by looking at a green square for a while, and then looking at a white white piece of paper. You will see red, green's opposing color. At this point, we interpret how we are able to see color and a combination of the two theories. Myers summarizes by stating, color processing occurs in two stages. The retina's red, green, and blue cones respond in varying degrees to different color stimuli, as in the Young-Helmholtz trichromatic theory. Their responses are then processed by the opponent process cells, as in Hering's theory. Thus, both theories are responsible for how our eyes relay color messages to the brain and how it interprets them into the images we see. It is absolutely amazing how much is going on internally for us to perceive color. Our brain processes the electromagnetic energy of an object. The different components of the eye sends the information to the brain, and the brain is responsible for interpreting the information. The process of how we have color vision really is a perception of our brain. Thus, tomatoes are red to us, but if we look at the world through the eyes of other species, we might not perceive them as so. The brain is truly a masterpiece that allows us to see the beauty of the world in millions